If we look at this map, one of the questions that we have to ask is, in what location do most Canadians speak French? Of course, if we look right here in the Quebec area, that is where our green French speakers are located. British conquest. In the mid 1700s, the rivalry between France and England turned to war. The conflict was called the French and Indian War here in the United States, whereas it was called the 7 Years' War in Great Britain. This was the war that resulted in the British taking control of New France, away from the French. A small number of French went back to France. However, the great majority stayed. For most of them, few changes occurred in their daily activities. They farmed the same land, prayed in the same churches, and continued to speak French. England's passage of the Quebec Act in 1774 supported the French-speaking colonialist by making it legal for Roman Catholics in Quebec to hold public office. Most of the French in Quebec were Roman Catholic, while English-speaking Canadian settlers tended to be Protestant. Few English-speaking settlers came to what is now called Quebec. The British divided Quebec into two colonies. Lower Canada, what mostly French-speaking, and Upper Canada was mostly English-speaking. The boundary between Upper and Lower Canada forms part of the border between the provinces of Quebec and Ontario today. Provinces are administrative divisions of a country. To the east, the colony in Nova Scotia was also divided. A new colony called New Brunswick was created where many British settlers lived. The creation of Canada. For several decades, these new colonies developed separately from each other. The colonists viewed themselves as different from other parts of the British Empire. Therefore, the British Parliament created the Dominion of Canada in 1867. A dominion is a territory or area of influence. This founding document encouraged the colonists to look at themselves in a slightly different light. For Canadians, the creation of the Dominion was a step toward independence from Britain. Now the colonists needed to make some changes that might better help to unite their sprawling land. The motto of the new Dominion was, "From sea to sea." How would Canadians create a nation from sea to sea? With railroads. When the Dominion was established, Ontario and Quebec were already well served by railroads. British Columbia on the Pacific coast was not. To connect British Columbia with the provinces in the east, the Canadians built a Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1885. The Canadian Pacific Railroad was Canada's first transcontinental railroad. After Canadian Pacific Railway linked the original Canadian provinces to British Columbia, Canada acquired vast lands in the north. Much of this land was bought from the Hudson Bay Company, a large British fur trading business. Most of the people living in the north were Native Canadians and people of mixed European and Native ancestry. With the building of the railroad and the signings of the treaties with Native Canadians, early Canadian settlers created a way for more people to settle in Canada's new territory.